जू की श्री गोविंद गोपीनाथ मरण मोहन जू की जाय नित्य प्रविष्टम विष्णुपार अष्टोत्तर शत शिशिमार भक्ति वेदांत नारायण गोस्वामी महाराज श्री गुरुदेव की जाय नित्य प्रविष्टम विष्णुपार अष्टोत्तर शत शिशिमार भक्ति वेदांत वामन गोस्वामी महाराज की जाय नित्य प्रविष्टम विष्णुपार अष्टोत्तर शत शिशिमार भक्ति सिद्धांत सरस्वती गोस्वामी प्रभुपार की जाय नित्य प्रविष्ट महाभागवत न नितिल प्रविष्टम विष्णुपाद श्रीमद् भक्ति विज्ञान केशव गोस्वामी महाराज की जाय नितिल प्रविष्टम विष्णुपाद अष्टोत्तर शतश्मद भक्ति सिद्धांत सरस्वती गोस्वामी प्रभुपाद की जाय नितिल प्रविष्ट महाभागवत श्री गोरक्षोर बाबूजी महाराज की जाय नितिल प्रविष्ट श्री सच्चिदानंद भक्ति विनोद ठाकुर की जाय नितिल प्रविष्ट वैष्णव सार्वभौम श्री जगन्नाथ दास बाबूजी महाराज की जाय श्री रूपानुगौर्य गुरु वर्ग की जाय श्री रूप सनातन भट्ट रघुनाथ श्री जीव गोपाल भट्टदास रघुनाथ शारद गोस्वामी प्रभु की जाय श्री स्वरूप दामोदर राय रामानंदारी श्री गौर पार्षद वृंद की जाय नाम आचार्य श्री हरिदास ठाकुर की जाय प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासरी गौर भक्त वृंद की जाय क्षेत्र मंडल गौर मंडल व्रज मंडल मथुरा वृंदावन धाम की जाय सर्व अभिष्ट विरत गिरिराज महाराज की जाय राधा कुंज श्याम कोनि मुनो गंगा तुलसी भक्ति देवी की जाय हरि नाम संकीर्तन की जाय अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जाय समागत गौर भक्त वृंद की जाय ग्रंथराज श्रीमद् भागवतम की जाय श्रीमद् भगवती दशम स्कंद की जाय श्री निताय गौर प्रेमानंदे हरि हरि बोल हरि बोल everybody. Dandavat pranams Ganga Mataji, Gargaraj ji, Hare Krishna, Dandavat pranam. Prajumna Prabhu, Mantra Murti Mataji, Hari Bol. I was having difficulty. I was only going to be 3 minutes late, but then the screen share wasn't working. And anyways, I had to close everything and blah, blah, blah. But now it's working finally, thank God. Haribol Indira Mataji and Yashoda Didi, Dandavat Pranams. So since I'm so late, I'm going to just jump right into it. A magnificent gathering of many great souls. Once during a solar eclipse, people... Wait, what did we end with? We ended with Sudama. Yeah, we ended with Sudama. Okay. So, once during a solar eclipse, people all over Bharatavarsha visited the holy place of Kurukshetra. There, the Yadus met the Vrajavasis, headed by Nanda Maharaj, who were feeling intense separation from Sri Krishna. Krishna and Balaram bowed down to Nanda Maharaj and Mother Yashoda and embraced them, as their throats choked up with emotion. Nanda and Yashoda made their two sons sit on their laps and were somewhat relieved from the distress of separation. Then Krishna approached the gopis in a secluded place and consoled them, saying that they could never be separated from him. The gopis prayed simply to have Krishna's lotus feet manifest in their hearts. And that's not very good. Anyways, whatever. Draupadi met the queens of Krishna and asked them how each of them got married to Krishna. The 8 principal queens, Rukmini, Satyabhama, Jambavati... I think there's somebody at the door. Oh, maybe it's at the other door. I don't know. Sorry. The 8 principal queens, Rukmini, Satyabhama, Jambavati, Kalindi, Mitravinda, Satya, Bhadra, and Lakshmana, gratefully narrated how Lord Krishna accepted them as his maidservants. Rohini Devi, representing all the 16,100 queens whom Krishna had married after killing Narakasura, expressed their desire to follow in the footsteps of the Vraj Gopis in their service to Lord Krishna. Great sages like Narad and Vyasadeva arrived there, desiring to see Lord Krishna. Krishna glorified the purifying potency of great sages. The learned sages then glorified Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead playing the part of an ideal human being by worshipping the Brahmanas. Vasudeva then had the sages perform some Vedic sacrifices and offered them charity. Nanda Maharaj remained at Kurukshetra for 3 months, being unable to leave his beloved sons. Finally, Krishna promised that he would come to Vrindavan soon, and he bade farewell to Nanda, who too then departed for Vraj. The Yadavas also returned to Dwarka. Fulfiller of devotees' desires. Having heard the sages glorify Krishna at Kurukshetra, Vasudeva started developing reverence towards Krishna and Balaram instead of treating them as his sons. Vasudeva glorified his sons and even fell at Krishna's lotus feet, begging him to drive away the conception that the Lord was his son. But Krishna restored that conception in Vasudeva instead and pacified him. Mother Devaki then praised Krishna and Balaram and requested them to revive her 6 sons whom Kamsa had killed, just as they had retrieved the dead son of their guru. Krishna and Balaram at once went to the Sutala planet and met Bali Maharaj, who worshipped them and offered prayers. The lords then requested Bali to return Devaki's dead sons and brought them to their mother. Devaki felt a surge of affection for them, and milk began spontaneously flowing from her breasts. She offered them that milk, which once Krishna had drunk, and which had now become his remnant. The 6 boys then regained their original forms as demigods and went back to heaven. Once, while touring on pilgrimage, Arjuna heard that Baladev intended to get his sister Subhadra married to Duryodhan. Arjuna desired to marry Subhadra himself by kidnapping her. So, Arjuna disguised himself as a renunciate and went to Dwarka, whose residents respected him as a great saint. Once, when Subhadra left the palace to participate in a chariot festival, Arjuna abducted her and defeated the Yadavas who tried to oppose him. Balaram was angered at this, but Sri Krishna and the others pacified him, who then joyfully sent the bride and groom with gorgeous wedding gifts. In the city of Mithila, there was a poor Brahmin devotee of Krishna named Shrutadev, who was always satisfied. In the same city was a devotee named Bahulashva, who remains detached from material wealth. Pleased with the devotion of both, Lord Krishna visited their homes simultaneously in 2 forms, along with Narad and several other sages. Each of them worshipped Krishna suitably with prayers and whatever paraphernalia they had. Krishna imparted instructions on bhakti to his hosts. Lord Vishnu and Lord Shiva. In the course of describing such pastimes of Krishna, Shukadev Goswami also describes the prayers of the personified Vedas, glorifying the personal and impersonal aspects of Lord Narayan. Thereafter, at Parikshit's request, Shukadev Goswami described why Lord Vishnu's devotees are poor and Lord Shiva's devotees are opulent, while their worshipable lords are otherwise. The material opulences of Shiva's devotees are products of false ego in the 3 modes. Lord Vishnu, however, is transcendental to the modes. Thus, his devotees also become transcendental. When the Lord feels special mercy for someone, he gradually deprives him of wealth and frustrates his further attempts to gain wealth. When such a poverty-stricken person's relatives abandon him, he will befriend the Lord's devotees and traverse on the spiritual path. Once a demon named Vrika went to Kedarnath and worshipped Lord Shiva by offering pieces of his own flesh as oblations into the fire. Vrika desired a boon that the person whose head he would touch should die. Obliged, Shiva granted the boon. But the wicked demon immediately wanted to test it by putting his hand first on Shiva himself. Shiva fled for his life and approached Lord Vishnu. Vishnu then appeared as a young boy before Vrikasura and spoke to him in charming words that he shouldn't trust Shiva's word because he had become just like a hobgoblin since Prajapati Daksha had cursed him. The Lord incited Vrika to test Shiva's boon by putting his hand on his own head. Bewildered, the foolish demon did so and perished. Thus, Lord Vishnu saved his dear devotee Shiva. Once, a group of sages discussed who amongst the three lords, Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva, was the greatest, and they deputed Bhrigu Muni to investigate the matter. Deciding to test the tolerance of the three lords, and thus their greatness, Bhrigu first went to the court of Brahma and didn't offer him respects. Brahma became angry, but he suppressed it. Bhrigu understood it and then went to Lord Shiva, so then Bhrigu went to Lord Shiva, who came to embrace him. Bhrigu resisted him, calling Shiva a deviant heretic. Shiva became angry and was about to kill Bhrigu with his trident, but Parvati stopped Shiva just in time. Bhrigu then went to Vaikuntha to test Lord Narayan and directly kicked his chest as he was lying with his head in the lap of Lakshmi. Lord Narayan, instead of reacting out of anger, offered respects to Bhrigu and he begged forgiveness for not noticing his arrival. Impressed, Bhrigu then went back to the assembly of sages and declared that Lord Vishnu was certainly the supreme. A visit to the abode of Mahavishnu. Let me check the comments again. Haribo, Bhavatarani Mataji, Nari Hari Prabhu, Raseri Mataji, Madhavi Didi, and Shasharmaji. Okay, so a visit to the abode of Mahavishnu. Once in Dwarka, a Brahman's wife gave birth to a son, but the boy immediately died. The Brahman took the dead body of the son to King Ugrasen's court and accused him that he had caused the death of his son by failing to execute his religious and state duties properly. In this way, 8 sons of the Brahman died, and every time he would come and blame the king. When the 9th son also died at birth, Arjuna, who happened to be at Dwarka, heard the Brahman's sorrow and promised to protect his progeny. Arjuna vowed to enter fire if he failed to do so. After some time, when the Brahman's wife was about to give birth for the 10th time, Arjuna enveloped in the maternity... Is that the right word? Anyways, Arjuna enveloped the maternity house... Arjuna enveloped the maternity house with a protective cage of arrows. But as soon as the child was born, it disappeared into the sky. The Brahman profusely derided Arjuna, who then searched throughout the 14 worlds but couldn't find the newborn anywhere. Arjuna then prepared to enter fire for his failure. Lord Krishna stopped him just in time. Krishna took Arjuna in his transcendental chariot and crossed over the 7 universal islands and oceans and entered the region of dense darkness. Krishna then illuminated that area with his blazing Sudarshan chakra and gradually came to the causal ocean, within which they entered the abode of Lord Mahavishnu, who is situated on the 10,000 hooded serpent, Ananta. Enlivened to see Lord Krishna along with Arjuna, Mahavishnu said, "I brought the Brahman sons here simply because I wanted to see you both. Please cause welfare to the humanity by exemplary behavior in the forms of Nar Narayan Rishis." Krishna and Arjuna then took the Brahman sons, went back to Dwarka, and returned the infants to their father. Arjuna was amazed to see the greatness of Sri Krishna. In his pastimes, Lord Krishna effortlessly visited Yamaloka, Swarga, Sutala, Karana, and Karana Samudra, the causal ocean, demonstrating his unparalleled mystic potencies. One second, just seeing. Okay. The Song of the Queens. In his magnificent abode of Dwarka, Lord Krishna enjoyed with his queens in ponds and palace grounds. With his graceful gestures, loving words, and sidelong glances, Krishna captivated the hearts of the queens, who would become fully absorbed in thoughts of him. The transcendental madness of the queens filled them with such ecstasy that they saw their own mood reflected in everyone and everything else. They expressed their ecstatic mood in a song called the Mahishi Geet. The queens addressed various creatures, the queens addressed various creatures, the Kurari and Chakravaka birds, the ocean, the moon, a cloud, a cuckoo, a mountain, a river, and so on, declaring their own great attachment to Sri Krishna on the pretext of empathizing with all these other entities. Through each of his queens, Lord Krishna begot 10 sons. Among them, the foremost was Pradumna, who married Rukmi's daughter and begot Aniruddha. Aniruddha married Rukmi's granddaughter and begot Vajra, from whom the remainder of the Yadu dynasty descended. The members of the Yadu dynasty were virtually innumerable. That the Yadus employed 38,800,000 teachers just to educate their children says how expansive the Yadu clan was. All right, so that's the end of our summary of the 10th canto. Yeah, I thought it might be nice to go through the 11th canto, which is much shorter. This isn't going to take. Let's see, maybe I didn't actually look how long this chapter is, but the 10th canto is just the 11th canto is just a fraction of the size of the 10th canto, so I'm guessing it couldn't be that long, this summary. So that now then when we begin the 11th canto, which I guess will be tomorrow, which is also tomorrow is Srivas Pandit's appearance day. That's an auspicious day to begin the 11th canto. So yeah, you can get a bird's eye view of the 11th canto so that we know where we're going when we're reading it. Okay, so Canto 11. The 11th canto corresponds to the forehead of Lord Krishna and predominantly describes the topic of mukti, or liberation. This canto mainly deals with the subject of the disappearance of Lord Krishna and the enigmatic destruction of his Yadu dynasty orchestrated by the Lord through the curse of the sages. It contains the highly philosophical conversation between King Nimi and the Nava-Yogendras. This canto also presents the longest philosophical episode of the entire Bhagavatam, namely the Uddhav Geet that Lord Krishna spoke to his dearest associate Uddhav just before his departure from this world. These topics enlighten us on deeper truths of this universe, various spiritual paths, and the supreme path of ultimate perfection, Bhakti Yoga. Once, the sages including Vishwamitra, Durvasa, Kashyapa, Angira, Vashishta, Narad, and others went to a holy place called Pindaraka after performing a ritual at Vasudev's house. By Krishna's desire, in a playful mood, the young boys of the Yadu family dressed Krishna's son Samba as a pregnant woman and inquired from the sages about the fruit of Samba's fictitious pregnancy. They said, is Samba going to give birth to a girl or a boy? Feeling disrespected, the sages cursed the mocking boys. The sages said, "You fools! She will give birth to a club that will destroy your dynasty." Utterly shocked, the boys immediately lifted the garment from Samba's abdomen and, to their astonishment, found a club. The boys were terrified and hastily brought the club to King Ugrasen and narrated everything. On the regretful king's order, the club was ground to powder and thrown into the ocean. But as Providence would have it, the waves carried all the bits of powdered club back to the shore, where they were absorbed and fructified into tall canes. A hunter named Jara found a small lump of that iron club from the belly of a fish, and he fashioned it into an arrowhead. These iron canes and the hunter's arrow would ultimately be the means for the annihilation of the Yadus. The all-knowing Lord Krishna, although capable of reversing the Brahman's curse, didn't do so. Rather, in his form as time, he sanctioned all these events. The reasons why Krishna departed along with the Yadus are elaborated later. The 9 glorious questions. Understanding the curse on the Yadu dynasty and the imminent disappearance of Krishna, Vasudeva became anxious. He approached Narad Muni for enlightenment. Narad instructed him by narrating a conversation between King Nimi and the Navayogendras. These are the 9 great devotee sons of Lord Rishabdev. They're Kavi, Havi, Antariksha, Prabuddha, Pipalayan, Avirhotra, Drumila, Chamasa, and Karabhajana. Once during their travels, the Navayogendras had come to see the sacrifice of Nimi. Nimi had asked them 9 glorious questions, each one of which was answered by one of the 9 great sages. So here's a question on bhakti. Asked his first question. Please tell me, what is the supreme good for the entire humanity? Shri Kavi answered, fear comes from misidentification with matter. But if one worships the Supreme Lord Narayan and performs bhakti by one's body, mind, and senses, one will become fully fearless in this world. Great. Now, the second question regarding bhakta. What are the qualities and behavior of a devotee? Shri Havi answered, there are 3 types of devotees. 1. Uttam Adhikari, are a very advanced devotee who sees Lord Krishna within everything and sees everything in relation with Krishna. And 2. There's the Madhyam Adhikari, an intermediate devotee who offers love to the Lord, makes friendship with other devotees, shows mercy to the innocent, and disregards the envious. And thirdly, there is the Kanishta Adhikari, or a neophyte devotee, who faithfully worships the deity but doesn't behave properly with the devotees. Now, Maya, Nimi's third question. Please describe Maya, or the illusory energy of Lord Vishnu that bewilders even great mystics. Shri Antariksha answered, to facilitate the independent enjoying propensity of wayward souls, the Lord creates samsara, or this material existence, by his illusory energy, Maya. Though constitutionally eternal, all-knowledgeable, and ever blissful, the materially embodied soul engages in gratifying material senses, identifying oneself to be the material body. Thus, the spirit soul gets entangled in Maya, or illusion. Despite experiencing the dualities of material existence, like happiness and distress, birth and death in samsara, the soul still continues wandering in it, looking for permanent happiness and eternal existence. This materialistic sojourn is in fact fueled by the illusion soul's materialistic desires and activities for the allurements of Maya. Ultimately, the Lord, in his form of eternal time, withdraws the entire cosmos at the end of the life of Brahma. Mukti. Nimi asked his fourth question. How can a foolish materialist become disassociated from Maya? I'm just checking to make sure I'm using my mic. I forgot to check that. Yes, it's working. Great. Okay, so how can a foolish materialist become disassociated from Maya? Sri Prabhupada answered, for real happiness, one has to approach an authorized guru who has realized the conclusion of all scriptures and has taken shelter of the Supreme Lord, leaving aside all material considerations. A disciple should accept such a guru as one's life and soul and serve him without duplicity, with full sense control. That's the verse Bhayam Tutiya Biniveshata Syat, isn't it? Guru Deva Tatma, that one? I think so. A disciple has to practice cleanliness, austerity, tolerance, simplicity, nonviolence, equanimity, equanimity, and do everything for the Lord's pleasure. Such a devotee must cultivate friendships with other devotees by discussing the glories of the Lord in their association. Thus, by complete devotion to Lord Narayan, a devotee develops love for him and can easily cross the otherwise insurmountable Maya. Bhagavan. Nimi asked his fifth question. Please describe the transcendental position of Narayan. Sage Pipalayan answered. There are three features of the Absolute Truth. 1. Brahman, that pervades all states. 2. Paramatma, that enters all hearts. And 3. Bhagavan, the Supreme Person. Karma Yoga. Nimi's sixth question was, please describe Karma Yoga by which one can attain the transcendental platform. Shri Avihotra answered, foolish people are attached to fruitive activities, although the actual goal is to become free from them and their resultant karma. If one is not sense-controlled, one will be caught up in samsara. However, by Nishkam Karma Yoga, or by performing one's prescribed duties with detachment, one will become free from bondage. One must approach a guru and worship the Lord's deity to quickly attain liberation from samsara. Avatar. The seventh question by Nimi. What are the various pastimes of the Lord's incarnations? Then Sri Drumila answered, one may count all the atomic particles on the earth, but one cannot count all the qualities of the Supreme Lord. He incarnates as the Purusha avatars and Guna avatars for the creation, maintenance, and destruction of this universe. And to perform various pastimes, the Lord appears as Leela avatars, including Narayan, Hamsa, Dattatreya, Rishabha, Hayagriva, Nrsimha, Ram, Parshuram, and so on. While narrating the pastimes of the sages, Narayan, Drumila said, when the sages Narayan were performing austerities, Indra became afraid of losing his post and sent Cupid to distract them. Cupid, however, was humbled by Narayan, who received him with hospitality and instead offered him the gift of a beautiful damsel named Urvashi. A bhakta. Nimi then asked his eighth question. What is the destination of one who is devoid of bhakti? Sri Chamasa answered. The non-devotees are of two types. One, how come it says 1 and 3? That's so funny. Okay, anyways, the devotees are of two types. 1. Na bhajanti are those who do not worship the Lord out of ignorance. And 2. Avajananti are those who intentionally disrespect the Lord out of arrogance. Innocent or ignorant people deserve the mercy of advanced devotees so that they can become devotees too. But the second category of people perform sinful acts, misinterpret scriptures, become addicted to sex life and meat eating, and this is due to their pride in wealth, power, high birth, education, beauty, and strength. Those who are addicted to these sins will have to enter hell and experience severe distress. The regulated concessions for sex, intoxication, and meat eating in Vedic literatures are only meant to gradually elevate people to higher consciousness. Then the Yuga avatars, Nimi's ninth question. What are the different Yuga avatars of the Lord? What are the different Yuga avatars of the Lord? What is the process for worshipping them? Sri Karabhajan describes the different Yuga avatars of Satya, Treta, and Dwapar Yugas, and how the Lord is adored by meditation, sacrifice, and worship in the respective ages. He further described how in Kali Yuga, intelligent persons perform Sankirtan, or congregational chanting, to worship the Lord's incarnation. Oh, that's that famous verse, right? Krishna Varnam Tusha Krishnam Sangopanglastra Parshadam. Yeah. So they worship the Lord's incarnation, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who constantly sings the names of Krishna. Although his complexion is not blacklish, it's a Krishna, he is Krishna himself, accompanied by his various associates. Great people appreciate Kali Yuga, in which perfection can be easily attained simply by performing Sankirtan. Thus, even the inhabitants of Satya Yuga desire to take birth in this age. Thus, having heard the science of bhakti from the Nava-yogendras, Nimi felt extremely satisfied and worshipped them. Fixed in the spiritual principles received, Nimi achieved the supreme goal. Having narrated this enlivening conversation of Nimi and the Nava-yogendras, Narad spoke to Vasudeva. Apply these principles of bhakti faithfully, and you will attain the Supreme Lord. You and your wife Devaki are pure and glorious, because the Supreme Lord has become your son and associated with you in various intimate ways. Do not think of Krishna as an ordinary human. He is the Supreme Lord, concealing his inconceivable opulence. He descended to punish the demoniac and to protect the devoted. Hearing the teachings of Narad Muni, Vasudeva and Devaki gave up all illusion and became freed from anxiety. Okay, now we come to the last meeting. Thereafter, Lord Brahma and the other demigods came to Dwarka and offered their prayers to the lotus feet of Lord Krishna, anticipating his imminent disappearance. Hare Krishna, Raj Bhuvan Yadav ji. So Lord Brahma and the other demigods came to Dwarka and offered their prayers to the lotus feet of Lord Krishna, anticipating his imminent disappearance. Addressing Brahma, Lord Krishna disclosed that he would soon depart from this world after withdrawing the Yadu dynasty, having already made the arrangements for that through the curse of the sages. Understanding Krishna's plan, Uddhav, the unalloyed devotee and dearest friend of Krishna, was overwhelmed with separation and anxiety. Uddhav approached Krishna with folded hands, pleading to take him along with him to his spiritual abode. During his manifest pastimes on the earth, Krishna had exchanges with several of his devotees at Vrindavan, Mathura, Dwarka, Indraprastha, Hastinapur, Mithila, and so on. He had also graced the heavenly planets with his presence and gave darshan to Aditi and Kashyapa during the Parijata tree episode. He had visited the lower planets to retrieve Sandipani Muni's son, and met Bali Maharaj and Yamaraj there. He even went to Vaikuntha and met Mahavishnu and others on the plea of retrieving the sons of a Brahman in Dwarka. One place where Krishna hadn't personally visited during his earthly sojourn, however, was Badarikashram, where the great sages Nar Narayan resided. With his departure due now, Krishna wanted Uddhav to go and enlighten the sages at Badarikashram on his behalf. Krishna considered Uddhav as good as his own self, and thus imparted confidential teachings called the Uddhav Geet to him. This Uddhav Geet forms the longest philosophical section of this magnum opus literature, Srimad Bhagavatam. Magnum opus, right? Yeah. In it, Krishna spoke about bhakti, jnana, and vairagya to teach us through Uddhav. So now we're going through a summary of Uddhav Geet. Uddhav Geet. Equal vision. Krishna spoke to Uddhav. Dear Uddhav, My mission here is complete. As I depart, you too should not remain here as the earth would be bereft of all piety in Kali Yuga, with people addicted to sinful life. Give up all attachments, fix your mind on me, and see everything with equal vision and renounced spirit. Becoming one's own guru. Hearing about the renounced spirit suggested by Krishna, Uddhava asked, how to cultivate such detached vision, since renunciation is difficult for ordinary people who are attached to sense enjoyment? Krishna answered, an intelligent person can analyze the worldly situation by perception, common sense, and logic to rise above sense enjoyment. By inculcating certain principles and avoiding certain activities, one can search out and ultimately attain me, the Supreme Lord. Therein lies the glory of human life. King Yadu had once seen a young Avadut Brahman, Lord Dattatreya, who appeared learned, wandering about fearlessly. Yadu learnt that the Brahman had taken shelter of the 24 gurus, including the plants, animals, birds, insects, and nature, along with the moving story of the prostitute Pingala. He had learnt the science of the self and developed detachment by carefully studying their activities. And qualities with his refined intelligence. Yadu worshipped him and developed equal vision, becoming free from all material attachments. Having developed equal vision, he became free from all material attachments. The process of disentanglement. Having prescribed equal vision and described the qualities of a saintly person through the story of the Avadut Brahman, Krishna further outlined the practical means to achieve such a saintly position. Initially, taking shelter in me through scriptures, one must practice varnashram. Work not for selfish sense enjoyment, but as a matter of duty, nishkam karma yoga. By this, one gets some understanding of the true self. One must then approach a bona fide guru, a representative of God, with faith and affection, and be completely surrendered to him. One must be eager to receive knowledge from God, from the guru. Such pure spiritual knowledge destroys illusion arising from the material modes. Now the nature of Tranamrita. Okay. The nature of fruitive activity. Refuting the karma mimamsa theory, which states that attaining happiness by fruitive work is the ultimate goal of life, Krishna explains, attached workers desire perpetual happiness, but they are unhappy too often and satisfied only occasionally. Thus they prove that they are not independent, and their destinies are under some superior control. So the concept of becoming happy by expertly doing karma is only due to false independence and pride. Even if, by some means, people are able to avoid misery, still they cannot avoid death. Happiness, either on earth or in heaven, is always polluted by envy, decay, and death. Therefore, on the path of materialism, there is certainly no uninterrupted or natural happiness. Through pious acts, one achieves heaven, but after brief enjoyment there, one falls back to the mortal plane. Through impious acts, one can extract some short-term pleasure, but consequently suffer in hell and get an inauspicious body in the next earthly birth. Evidently, those devoted to material activities and rituals are perplexed and subjected to lamentation, being bound one way or the other. Conditioned and liberated souls. Haribola Chutapriya Didi. Conditioned and liberated souls. Uddhav further asked Krishna about the jiva's entanglement in Maya and the symptoms of conditioned and liberated souls. Krishna explains that bondage and liberation do not actually exist for the spirit soul, which is a spirit soul who is just a fragmental part of God. Vidya and avidya, knowledge and ignorance, has two energies. Vidya and avidya, knowledge and ignorance, which are his two energies, creates liberation and bondage, respectively. The jiva's relationship with the material nature arises only due to their ignorance, their avidya. The conditioned soul identifies with the material body like a person who identifies with somebody in a dream. Thus, one undergoes various illusory experiences of temporary bodily enjoyment and distress. These are illusory and not factual because the soul in its original state is ever blissful as part of the whole. The liberated soul, therefore, although situated in the material body, doesn't identify with it. He remains detached from all worldly sense objects, although he may seem to be engaging with them. Appropriate renunciation or yukta vairagya. Being fully awakened to one's spiritual identity as a servant of God, a liberated soul has no relation whatsoever with this material world. Krishna then described how to become liberated. Krishna said, "Accept only those scriptures that describe my glories. Thus, fix your mind on me and perform devotional service in association of my devotees. Thus, reach the platform of ultimate liberation, my supreme abode." Other scriptures which deal with subject matters other than pure devotional service, teaching ways of pious and peaceful living, etc., factually open doors to further entanglement only. The true bhakta and the best bhakti. Hearing that one-pointed devotion leads to Krishna's abode, Uddhav asked, "Whom do you consider to be a true devotee, and what are the aspects of devotional practice?" Krishna replied, A true devotee has 28 qualities. He is merciful, forgiving, truthful, non-envious, undisturbed, self-controlled, peaceful, steady. He accepts me as the only shelter, and so on. The practice of bhakti includes the 64 kinds of activities: seeing, touching, worshipping, serving, glorifying, and offering obeisances to the deity and pure devotees, hearing and chanting about me, meditation on me, etc. Being their ultimate shelter, I remember such devotees who perform such bhakti. If one does not engage in bhakti, which arises usually by associating with my devotees, there is no means of escaping material existence. The power of devotee association. Describing the super excellence of devotee association, Krishna said, "By associating with my pure devotees, one can destroy one's attachment for all material sense gratification and attain perfection. Many people could attain me simply by associating with my pure devotees. Daityas, Rakshasas, birds, beasts, Gandharvas, Apsaras, Vaishyas, Shudras, and so on were purified in devotee association. Some examples were Vritrasura, Prahlad, Bali, Vrishaparva, Bana, Maya, Vibhishan, Sugriva, Hanuman, Jambavan, Gajendra, Jatayu, Tuladhara, Kubja, the gopis, and the wives of the Brahmanas. These persons did not undergo serious Vedic studies, nor did they execute severe vows or austerities, but simply associated with my devotees. Krishna then glorified the topmost of all his devotees, the gopis of Vrindavan. Attached to me with the deepest love, the gopis felt extreme distress because of separation from me when Akrura came to take myself and Balaram to Mathura. All those nights that they spent with me felt like a passing moment to them, but in my absence, the same night felt to them like a day of Brahma. The role of knowledge, Gyan. Krishna so far gave the gradual progression of the process of disentanglement as Varnashram, Nishkam Karma Yoga, surrendering to a bona fide guru, and then one-pointed devotion to him. Seeing Uddhav undecided, Krishna advised conclusively, one can use the axe of knowledge cultivated under the guru and cut this tree-like universe made of Maya with its various flowers and fruits of material happiness and distress. Knowledge is awakened by the practice of the principles in the mode of goodness. By cultivating goodness, one can conquer the lower modes. Ultimately, one must give up the axe of knowledge too, and be exclusively fixed in complete devotion to me. The role of yoga. Having heard about knowledge, Uddhav then asked Krishna, human beings experience that material life repeatedly brings suffering, yet they try to enjoy materially. Why is this so? Krishna replied, due to misidentifying oneself with the material body and mind, the conditioned soul develops false knowledge. This misidentification and false knowledge afflicts one with unbearable material desires. Once, the four Kumaras had asked Brahma how to destroy the mutual relationship between the sense objects and the mind. Brahma couldn't answer it, but fixed his mind on me. I then appeared as Hamsa, the swan incarnation, to explain Sankhya, by which one philosophically distinguishes matter from spirit. The mind and sense objects are merely designations that cover the spirit soul. Their mutual attraction is due to constant sense gratification. Being dedicated to me, one can renounce the mind, sense objects, and the false ego that causes material bondage. Bhakti, the supreme path. Uddhav asked Krishna, sages recommend various processes based on the Vedas. All of them are all of them equally important, or is one of them supreme? Krishna replied, I manifest in the sound vibration of the Vedas. But in the course of time, due to the interpretations of many kinds of people, piety and penance, due to the interpretations of many kinds of people, piety and penance seemingly became seen as the topmost spiritual practices. Though it is only devotion which can purify one's consciousness completely and make one desire. Piety and penance seemingly became seen as the topmost spiritual practice, even though it is devotion only that can purify one's consciousness completely and make one desire nothing but me. Such devotion brings me under the control of my devotee. I follow their footsteps, and with the dust of their feet, I purify the material worlds. Different methods like Ashtanga Yoga, Sankhya, piety, non-violence, Vedic chanting, and so on cannot bring me under control. Ashtanga Yoga, the Siddhis and the Vibhutis. Uddhav then asked the Lord about the mystic perfections. Uddhav wanted to know this process, not to practice it, but only to increase his appreciation for bhakti through comparison. Krishna then explained, the process of Ashtanga Yoga constitutes 8 types of practices by which one attains mystic perfections, siddhis. There are 18 types of siddhis, like anima, are becoming smaller than the smallest, mahima, are becoming bigger than the biggest, and so on. All the siddhis are ultimately futile and are impediments and they are a waste of time for one who practices the supreme yoga of bhakti. Krishna then described all his material and spiritual opulences, his vibhutis, and concluded, all power, beauty, fame, humility, charity, fortune, valor, tolerance, and wisdom, wherever they are manifest, are simply expansions of me. Varnashram. Uddhav asked Krishna, how can one achieve devotional service through the prescribed duties in the Varnashram system? Krishna declared how he is the origin of all Varnas, or social orders. That is, the Brahmins, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, and Shudras, and the Ashrams, are spiritual orders. That is, the Brahmacharis, Grihastas, Vanaprasthas, and Sannyasis. He then described the qualities of people in different Varnas and the duties of people in different ashrams, and said, one is purified by undertaking his prescribed duties of Varnashram. When such duties are dedicated to me in loving service, they award the supreme stage of liberation. Universal aspects of civilized life. Upon Uddhav's request, Lord Krishna prescribed the 12 types of disciplinary regulations, like non-violence, truthfulness, humility, etc., and also 12 types of regular duties, like cleanliness, chanting, austerity, visiting holy places, etc. He also defined several terms like self-control, the greatest charity, and the greatest austerity, etc. After delineating many good and bad qualities, Krishna ultimately concluded that to maintain a worldly vision of good and bad is itself detrimental. Sorry. Krishna ultimately concluded that to maintain a worldly vision of good and bad is itself detrimental, and one must therefore aim to transcend both good and evil. Bhakti surpasses knowledge and detachment. Uddhav asked, how can one not refer to good and bad, or piety and sin? The Vedas bring forth piety and sin, and contain various prohibitions and recommendations. Krishna replied, there are 3 paths for perfection, namely Gyan, Karma, and Bhakti. The qualification for Gyan is detachment towards material life, and the qualification for Karma is attachment to material pleasures. The qualification for Bhakti is balanced attachment and detachment, or Yukta Vairagya. Until one has developed sufficient detachment or developed mature faith and taste in Bhakti, one has to continue to act according to the Vedic injunctions discerning between good and bad. One should try to reach the platform of dutiful action without desiring enjoyments for their fruits. By this, one obtains knowledge or devotion. Thereafter, some way or the other, one must endeavor in his human birth to try to achieve the ultimate perfection. To this end, while the yogi fixed in knowledge has to make many endeavors to maintain his spiritual position, all the material desires of a devotee who constantly worships me are spontaneously destroyed. Bhakti is factually independent. Thus, for a devotee, knowledge and detachment are not means to achieve the highest perfection. Everything that can be achieved by any other process is easily achieved by my devotee through bhakti unto me. But my unalloyed devotees desire nothing. Devotees desire nothing besides me. They do not accept even liberation if offered by me. Material piety and sin cannot exist within them. They attain freedom from illusion and attain my abode. How much longer does this go on for? Wow, this is long. Okay, we're not going to finish all this. Okay, it's already 8:30 now, so I think I'm going to just stop here. Yeah. We're ending on the Vedic path, if I can remember that. And then after this, um, then it says disappearance of the divine dynasty. Thereafter, observing many disturbances in Dwarka, Lord Krishna addressed the Yadus. Please see these terrible omens which appear like flags of death. We should not remain here even for a moment. Let us go to Prabhas Kshetra and perform auspicious rituals and worship the Brahmanas. Consenting, the Yadus crossed over the ocean on boats and then proceeded on chariots to Prabhas Kshetra. There they performed various rituals. By the will of Providence, they drank liquor, and in a delirious state, they started fighting among themselves violently. When all their weapons broke, they seized the tall canes on the seashore that came from that play that Samba pretended to be pregnant. Yeah, so in their confused state, mistaking Lord Balaram as their enemy, they ran towards him, intending to try to kill him. They wanted to kill Balaram, his own relatives. Krishna and Balaram also picked up the canes and began to kill the arrogant warriors. Thus, like a forest fire which engulfs itself, all the Yadus were destroyed. Balaram then fixed himself in meditation and gave up this mortal world. Subsequently, Krishna also silently sat down under a peepal tree, exhibiting his effulgent four-armed form for the final pastime in this world. The hunter Jara, mistaking the Lord's foot for a deer's face, pierced the foot with his arrow, which he had fashioned from the last iron fragment from Samba's cursed club. Realizing his offense, Jara fell at the feet of the Lord, weeping in repentance. Krishna replied, Dear Jara, do not fear, as this is all because of my desire. You may now go to the spiritual world. The hunter circumambulated Krishna thrice, and receiving his causeless mercy, departed in a celestial airplane to the spiritual sky. At that time, Daruka, the chariot driver of Krishna, noticed the Lord. The Lord's chariot then rose up into the sky along with its horses and flags. All of the Lord's divine weapons also followed. Krishna then instructed Daruka, Go to Dwarka and inform about the destruction of the Yadus, the disappearance of Balaram, and my current situation. You and your relatives should not remain in Dwarka, which will soon be inundated by the ocean. Take your own families together with my parents and go to Indraprastha under Arjuna's protection. Be firmly situated in devotion unto me and remain peaceful. Daruka then departed with a mourning heart. Lord Brahma then arrived at Prabhas Kshetra along with Shiva and the other demigods to witness the departure of Lord Krishna. Crowding the sky with many airplanes, the demigods showered flowers with great devotion. Krishna then closed his lotus eyes, fixing his mind within himself. Without the need to burn his body by mystic meditation like the yogis, he simply entered the spiritual world in his own transcendental self-same body. As soon as Krishna left the earth, truth, religion, beauty, faith, and glory immediately left this world too and followed him. At Dwarka, Devaki, Rohini, and Vasudev were tormented by separation from their sons. They gave up their lives at that very spot, and the wives of the Yadavs gave up their lives embracing their dead husbands on the funeral pyres. Arjuna felt great distress over separation from Lord Krishna, but consoled himself by remembering the transcendental words the Lord had sung to him in the Bhagavad-gita. Being abandoned by the Lord, the ocean flooded Dwarka on all sides, sparing only his palace. Arjuna took the survivors of the Yadu dynasty to Indraprastha and installed Vajra, Krishna's great-grandson, as their ruler. The Pandavas established Parikshit as the ruler of Hastinapur and left to prepare for their own departure from this world. Okay, so that's the end of the 11th canto. There's just that little, the end part of the Uddhav Gita I didn't finish. Which is actually, it wasn't that much longer. We could have finished it in like a couple minutes, but I don't want to go so overtime. So, yeah. Anyways. Maybe you can finish it tomorrow. But yeah, that's the 11th canto. So now, um, so now we're ready to begin the 11th canto. Tomorrow is an auspicious day to start. It's Srivas Pandit's appearance day. So maybe we could read a little something about Srivas Pandit, and then we'll begin the 11th canto. All right. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Nitai Gaur, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Gaur Hari Bol. Nitai Gaur, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaur, Hari Bol. जय श्री श्री गुरु गौरांग गंधार गिरिधारी श्री श्री राधा विनोद बिहारी जू की जय श्री गोविंद गोपीनाथ. Oh, you lost the audio a few pages back. There's is anybody else not hearing sound? Because on my screen it's showing that there's sound. Let me know if you can't hear me. Anybody? Um. जय श्री श्री गुरु गौरांग गंधार गिरिधारी श्री श्री राधा विनोद बिहारी जू की जय श्री गोविंद गोपीनाथ मरण मोहन जू की जय. नित्य प्रविष्टम विष्णुपाद अष्टोत्तर शत शिष्मार भक्ति वेदांत नारायण गोसाई महाराज श्री गुरुदेव की जय. नित्य प्रविष्टम विष्णुपाद अष्टोत्तर शत शिष्मार भक्ति वेदांत वामन गोसाई महाराज की जय. नित्य प्रविष्टम विष्णुपाद अष्टोत्तर शत शिष्मार भक्ति वेदांत स्वामी महाराज श्री प्रभुपाद की जय. नित्य प्रविष्टम विष्णुपाद अष्टोत्तर शत शिष्मार भक्ति प्रज्ञान केशव गोसाई महाराज की जय. नित्य प्रविष्टम विष्णुपाद अष्टोत्तर शत शिष्मार भक्ति सिद्धांत सरस्वती गोसाई प्रभुपाद की जय. नित्य प्रविष्ट महाभागवत शिल गोक्षर बाबूजी महाराज की जय. नित्य प्रविष्ट शिल सच्चिदानंद भक्ति विनोद ठाकुर की जय. नित्य प्रविष्ट वैष्णव सार्वभौम शिल जगन्नाथ दास बाबूजी महाराज की जय. श्री रूपानुगौरिया गुरु वर्ग की जय. श्री रूप सनातन भट्ट रघुनाथ श्री जीव गोपाल भट्टदास रघुनाथ शार गोसाई प्रभु की जय. श्री स्वरूप दामोदर राय रामानंदारी श्री गौर पार्षद वृंद की जय. नाम जय श्री हरिदास ठाकुर की जय. प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासरी गौर भक्त वृंद की जय. श्री क्षेत्र मंडल गौर मंडल व्रज मंडल मथुरा वृंदावन धाम की जय. सर्व अभिष्ट प्रदात गिरिराज महाराज की जय. श्री राधा कुंज श्याम कुंज यमुना गंगा तुलसी भक्ति देवी की जय. श्री हरि नाम संकीर्तन की जय. अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय. समागत गौर भक्त वृंद की जय. ग्रंथराज श्रीमद् भागवतम की जय. 10th canto and 11th canto की जय. श्री हरि नाम संकीर्तन की जय. अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय. श्री निताय गौर प्रेमानंदे हरि हरि बोल. वृंदाय तुलसी देवाय प्रियाय केशवाय च कृष्ण भक्ति प्रददेवी सत्यवताय नमो नमः. वाञ्छा कल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्यैव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः. Dandavat pranams, everybody. Nobody responded. Does that mean that nobody can hear me? Haribol, 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 Haribol. Anyhow, I'm gonna stop the video now, and I'll see you all tomorrow. Hare Krishna Balaram Chandranath ji. So yeah, see you all tomorrow for the beginning of the 11th canto.